On this episode of Burnout, we're attempting to race my 76 Camaro against this almost brand new 2018 Camaro Rally Sport. I have a bad feeling about this.
In case you haven't seen episode 5 of Burnout, let me give you a quick summary on my 76 Camaro. I bought this thing running and driving from a guy I met on Craigslist in May of 2019. Now, while it was running when I bought it, it was running pretty bad, and there was a ton of rot and rust all over the car. The floors were completely rotted through. Jay and I spent the summer of 2019 trying to convert this thing from the Flintstones car to an actual drivable vehicle. And believe it or not, we actually succeeded. In November of 2019, we wrapped up the filming of episode 5 and celebrated with some burnouts and donuts in a movie theater parking lot. Shortly after that, the car wasn't running great again. I discovered that there was a massive internal coolant leak inside the engine. So I decided I was going to take apart the engine and start rebuilding it. Now cut to a year and a half later, where I let Jay convince me that it would be a good idea to race the banana peel against a 2018 Camaro. So you're probably already thinking that I'm crazy, but to be honest, you don't even know the half of it.
So,
we're in crunch time right now.
We are in crunch time, baby. It is currently 10:34 on Saturday. We need the car to be driving. Keep in mind, this is the engine behind us for the car. We need the car to be driving by Tuesday.
Now, here's where we're at right now. So currently the car has a hole in the roof that we need to patch. It doesn't have a front or...
It has a lot of holes in the roof. Yeah, but there's one big one.
Currently the car has a bunch of holes in the roof with one big one that we purposely cut out. That needs to be patched. It also doesn't have a front or rear windshield. The engine is out of the car, the trans is out of the car, and the entire front end, as you might be able to see in a picture or video behind us, the entire front end is off of the car. We have 70 hours to make this engine run, and we have about 2 weeks to get this road ready for our episode.
Yep. You heard that right. We gave ourselves 72 hours to finish rebuilding the engine, get it in the car, and get it running and driving. We had an overwhelming amount of work to do in the next 3 days and then the next 2 weeks. With that terrifying deadline looming over our heads, we put our noses to the grindstone and kicked off this episode pulling an all-nighter. We worked until 3 a.m. trying to assemble the rest of that engine together until we were ready to collapse. But we got up bright and early on Sunday morning to get back to work and try to finish completely assembling this engine. It took us all day, but we finally got it to a place where we were ready to start putting it in the car.
Shockingly, it is still Sunday. It's Sunday at 11:28 p.m. So we're actually doing better than we were yesterday. You know, it's not 3 a.m. right now.
We gracefully overcame stuff today, like the intake bolts, the rods.
Yeah.
We grazed past that.
We did good.
And we started putting stuff on.
Yep. And now we have a almost fully assembled engine block here. And we're getting ready to throw it in the car, which sounds absolutely crazy. So right now we're gonna put it on the hoist, get it off the stand, drop it on the ground, connect to the transmission, then put it back up on the hoist, throw it in the car, bolt it in, and then eat ice cream.
Well, that was the plan anyway. But we quickly realized that not much of this project was going to go according to plan.
Hey, so we're down here now. We were going to, do all the things that we said we were going to do. However, we apparently lost one of the flywheel bolts. So we can't do this tonight, but we are still going to eat ice cream anyways.
Tomorrow's going to be a good day.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Alright, it is almost exactly 2 days later. Jay is currently stuck under the car. He's going to be lining up the transmission and the drive shaft from under there. But we're
ready to actually mock up the engine in the car and get it mounted, hopefully for the final installation. Obviously there's still some parts that we need to put on. We wanted to wait to put the distributor on. We haven't put the alternator or the power steering bracket on, but carburetor's on, headers are on, basically everything's on. So we're ready to go. We're gonna start pushing in. This is exciting. I'm excited and nervous. I'm really nervous. For those of you keeping track, yeah, we missed our first deadline. We gave ourselves 3 days to get the engine running. And instead, at the 3-day mark, we're still trying to get it in the car. At this point, we've been working non-stop for the last 3 days, so we are exhausted, and I'm sure you could tell based on the previous clip. We've had so many delays and setbacks that we're starting to get really disheartened. And if we can't get this engine into the car tonight, we're gonna be in big trouble. So, even though we were exhausted, we pushed through and we worked until almost 2 a.m. trying to get this engine in. Took us a little bit to get the engine in the car. We had to turn off the cameras and just kind of focus on that. We got a little bit of work left to do. We got to get the power steering pump on, the crankshaft pulley, all the belts, the distributor in, and then put the whole front clip on, radiator, transcooler, all that jazz.
Knock on wood, but this thing might run today. If it doesn't, it will at least crank over and maybe spray some fluid into it to make sure it sounds okay and we didn't screw anything up. But nonetheless, we are aiming to get it running by today or tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Let's get to work.
So we slowly started crossing things off of our massive list. Then when it came time to install the distributor, we had to set the engine to top dead center, but we weren't able to rotate the engine manually. So we had to try and crank the engine to top dead center. Here's the problem. We haven't cranked the engine yet. So we hopped in the car and tried to crank the engine, and nothing happened, which in the moment was absolutely devastating. We had absolutely no idea what was happening. But we pretty quickly figured out that we just needed to flip some wires on the starter.
Oh, no, you're good.
I'm good.
All right.
Hey, all right. Hey!
Is
She cranks!
It's at top dead center?
Yep, nailed it first try.
Oh, God. Thank the Lord.
Dude, all right. After we got the engine to top dead center and installed the distributor, Jay insisted, despite my many attempts to dissuade him, that it was time to install the rugs and put the interior back together.
This is it. The rugs going in the car. Even though Tarpee's told me multiple times it won't happen. And here I am, thrilled as can be.
We were pretty happy with the progress we made that day, so we actually called it off a little bit early that night, because we knew tomorrow was going to be a big day. Today is the day that we are finally going to run the engine. We've been working on this thing for almost 2 weeks at this point, and there's only a couple small parts left to install before we're ready to prime the engine and then run it. This was a big moment for Burnout, but this was a huge moment for me personally. This is the first engine that I've ever rebuilt, and we're about to find out if I did everything right or if I just wasted $3,000 and 1.5 years of my life. Try it. The pure relief that I felt in that moment when the engine just started all on its own, no starter fluid or anything, was unbelievable. But as you can imagine, the engine was not running great. We had to mess with the idle adjustment screws a bit, but also we still had to properly set the timing, which means first I had to learn how to use my timing light and then set the timing. So once we got it running pretty decent, we decided it was time to go to bed, because even though this was a huge win for us, we still had a ton more work to do tomorrow. All right, we'll be back tomorrow.
We're calling it a night. That's a wrap.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the banana peel in its slightly finished form.
Ta-da!
Heyo! Finally, we are ready to test drive this car, and we're gonna see if it's able to move under its own power for the first time in 1.5 years. There's a lot of things that go into making this car actually drive. And at one point or another, we had worked on every single one of them, which is why we were particularly nervous about this test drive. But it had to happen, and we were beyond excited to try it out. I am hungry and thirsty, and we are going to die because I can't steer the car.
Now you know how I feel in the MG, but like times 5.
Yeah, this is like times 5. Dude, we are driving. Well, I'm driving, you're riding.
Yeah, dude.
Riding in style.
Hey, is your gas gauge correct?
Yeah, should be. Oh wow, we burned through a lot of gas. Wow, she really is a daily driver, not a race car.
I don't think she's either.
Right now, we're on top of the world. The engine was running good, the transmission was shifting well, even the manual steering felt fine. This test drive made us feel really good about the race. We know we're not going to win, but at least we're going to put up a fight. All right, so we made it back. That's a good step one. The car is in one piece still. It runs and drives fine. I mean, the steering kind of sucks because there's no power steering. We had to take the belt off because the pulleys are too misaligned. So we're going to see if we can try to get that figured out before Monday. Today is Saturday night. We're leaving tomorrow in the afternoon, so theoretically we have to try to figure that out before then. But no auto parts stores are open to get a bracket to help line it up, so it's a whole mess. But overall, huge success here. The car did great. It's a little wimpy. It's definitely a daily driver, not a race car, but that's what I was going for anyways. So yeah, thoughts?
Huge day coming on Monday.
Huge
Day for Burnout.
All right, bye. So, here we are. This is what we've all been waiting for. Finally, it's race day. The banana peel is here and ready to go. But now, it's time to meet the competitor. The car we're going to be racing belongs to our friend Katrina, and she was crazy enough to let us borrow it. But as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a 2018 Camaro Rally Sport with a 3.6 liter V6. This thing's gonna put up one hell of a challenge. Now, where are we racing? For this episode, we rented an autocross in Lakeville, Connecticut at limerockpark. limerock is a beautiful 300-acre facility with a 1.5-mile road course, half-mile autocross, 300-foot skid pad, and so much more. But today we're focused on the autocross. We'll conquer the road course later. The autocross is made up of two smaller tracks that can combine to make one larger track. Jay and I are both going to drive the Banana Peel and Katrina's Camaro. So not only is it a competition between cars, it's also a competition between drivers. The plan is to start off with a race around one of the small tracks. We'll do 4 laps each, 1 out, 2 hot, and 1 in. Then we'll combine the 2 tracks and race around the large autocross with the same 4-lap system. Each lap will be timed, and we'll take the best lap from each driver in each car and see who wins. 3, 2, 1, go! First up, we've got Jay and Katrina's Camaro, and he's treating this first lap like a true warm-up. He's going a bit on the slower side to make sure that he can learn this track and figure out all the twists and turns. His first lap came in at 25.15 seconds. But don't worry, he picked up the pace for the next 3 laps and managed to keep them all under 22 seconds, picking up a little bit over 3 seconds compared to the first lap. Jay put down some solid times in Katrina's Camaro, but now it's my turn to go. This was my first time driving Katrina's Camaro, so I had a lot of learning to do really quickly. The entire first lap, I kept fumbling with the paddle shifters right behind the steering wheel and accidentally shifting up and down. Similar to Jay, my first lap was slower than the rest of them. In fact, my last lap was actually the fastest overall, being 21.48 seconds. But unfortunately, I hit a cone. So we had to add 2 seconds to that lap, which now makes my fastest lap 22.33 seconds, and that puts Jay ahead of me in first place. But now, it's time to see what the banana peel can do. This time, I'm going first. I was pretty slow off the line, but pretty quickly I could feel that this thing might actually be competitive. The second lap started out great, but right about here, it felt like the Camaro was starting to slow down. I was so focused on trying not to run this thing off the track that I didn't notice the smoke until I was in the third lap, which is when it really started to get thick. By the fourth lap, I could tell that the Camaro was not going back out on the track.
Wasn't that supposed to be a pit?
So I decided to steal one more lap before the Camaro was sent to the pits. It was obvious that there was something seriously wrong with the car, but I couldn't worry about that yet. I wanted to make sure that the banana peel had its chance to race out on the track and give it the best shot of beating Katrina's Camaro. And you know what? We almost did. My best time in the banana peel was 22.56 seconds. So, Jay still had me beat by almost a full second, but I actually did manage to basically tie my times in Katrina's Camaro. I'm taking that as a massive win. The fact that the banana peel can keep up with Katrina's Camaro at all is amazing to me, especially while it's having all these problems. Oh, and by the way, once we pulled it in, I realized that the Camaro was leaking both engine oil and transmission fluid. And on top of that, it had another internal coolant leak. And if you don't remember, that's what was wrong with the engine at the beginning of this episode. The entire reason that I rebuilt the engine at all. So that was a bit of a gut punch. And to be honest, it really sucked that the Camaro was having these issues and that it wasn't able to continue racing. But at the end of the day, it still got to race. And not only did it race, but it actually kept up with Katrina's Camaro. And so yeah, like I said, it sucked, but it was still super fun. And that's what we're all about. The Burnout Show is all about just getting out there and having fun in whatever car you can. And that's what we did. And you can do it too. Doesn't matter what kind of car you have or what condition it's in, you can just get out there, rent a track, and have some fun. And that's what we just proved in this episode. And hey, if you're in the New England area, make sure to go check out Lime Rock, because they are great people and they have an awesome facility. And don't worry, if you were disappointed by the lack of racing in this episode, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button, because we'll be back here again in the next episode of Burnout.